All right, welcome everybody. Eugene here. This is part 10 of how to build a motorized bicycle. Put a little two-stroke on it so you can go tearing ass through the neighborhood. Now, I suggest you pay attention to today's video, okay? Chain tensioners. You better get this right, because if you don't get this right, there's going to be a lot of misery. Why the fuss about chain tensioners? Well, your chain going to keep breaking if you don't keep it properly tensioned. So you first build your bike, you're going tearing ass through the neighborhood. Your chain's going to start getting loose. It's going to start getting loose because the chain will start to stretch a little bit and the sprockets start to wear in, and you're always going to need to be making adjustments, particularly at first, okay? So as that chain starts seating into the sprockets, it stretches, you're going to need to keep making adjustments. So you've got some choices. We can either go with the stock chain tensioner that comes with the kit, which is okay, but you better be careful because it can flop into the spokes, lock the rear wheel up, shred some spokes, and you wind up kissing the road. There's the spring-loaded chain tensioners that a lot of people swear by, and there's some people who swear at them, okay? So you've got the one that mounts to the case, you've got the one that mounts to the chainstay with the spring. It's a modification of the stock chain tensioner, and those have some problems that it allows the chain to get jammed up inside the case. I've heard quite a few complaints about that. I don't mess with those at all. There's also the arch style chain tensioner, which, by the way, I happen to sell. I market a real nice one. Link down below. Yeah, promotion. There's also no chain tensioner. There's taking up the slack by whatever means necessary, and that would be if you're fortunate enough to have a bike with a lot of room in the rear dropouts and you can keep moving the rear wheel back to take up slack. Then you also have half links. You can play with that. But then when you keep moving the rear wheel back, something you got to think about is the pedal chain, okay? So you're always playing with one thing or another, or you can shim the motor mount. The little block here that goes on the back of the motor, you can shim that up. Now, I'm not going to go into that today. That's some advanced level stuff. It's more trouble than I want to mess with on a bike, to be honest. But if you're bound and determined and you want to, have the pride and joy of doing it that way, well, hey, it's going to be, you got a learning curve ahead of you. But let's start off with today. I'm going to show you how to put the stock tensioner on and the arch chain tensioner, and then you can decide which one you want to go with and what's going to work best for you. So come on, let me show you how to do it. All right, first up, let's take a look at the stock chain tensioner. Now, it's a decent one, but it does have a drawback. It can flop over into the spokes if you don't get a secure mount. Don't think that you can just drill a hole through the frame, put a screw in it, and do that. You put a hole in the frame, you're going to have problems. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Also, don't think you're going to put rubber between the mount and the frame. No, if it's not clamping securely enough, put metal in there. Cut you a piece of metal to go in there, but no rubber, no screws, none of that stuff. Don't even think of it, okay? Now, there are a couple of different styles. I like this style here that has the dual clamps on it. You've got 4 bolts and 4 nuts that you need to secure up. You can get a pretty good bite on that here. You want to make sure that you tighten up the lower clamps evenly. Now, when you install this, you want to push it all the way back to the axle as far as you can get it. You want to lower the adjuster wheel down as far as it will go. That way you'll have as much wiggle room as your chain stretches and seats in, okay? So make sure you get the clamps pretty doggone tight. You want it good and snug. You want to be sure and look at the top chain where it's going from the sprocket to the engine when in operation, and the bottom chain, and make sure that both chains, looking at it straight down, are one on top of the other, because if you have the chain tensioner pushed in towards the spokes or pushed out, you're going to have problems feeding the chain onto the wheel. Okay? So no matter which tensioner you install, once you get it set up and think you get it right, you want to pull in on the clutch and rotate the wheel and make sure you don't hear any popping sounds. If you hear any popping sounds, that's because the chain is not aligned correct, and you need to go back and make sure that that's set, okay? All right, next up, let's take a look at the arch style chain tensioner. The arch is there for a reason. That must correspond and run parallel to the curve of the rim there. You have a limited amount of space for the roller wheel to fit that the chain rolls on and not interfere with the spokes. If you have it pulled too far back, too close to the axle, it will hit the spokes. The roller wheel, that is, will hit the spokes. And if you have it too far forward, the roller wheel will interfere with the rim or the tire. So it's got its little sweet spot there that you put it on. You have two U-bolts, which then capture or hold the arch style tensioner to the frame. You have the lower one, which mounts on the frame member called the chain stay, and then you have the frame member where the U-bolt goes, that is called the seat stay. So you put the U-bolts in from behind there, and you can see the two threaded parts of the U-bolt facing you there. We then put that through the arch tensioner. There is the plate that goes on, then you put a flat washer, then you put the nylock hex nut. You want to get everything secured and adjusted. Make sure that the curve and the arch corresponds to the wheel. Get that good and tight. Next, let's take a look at how you properly set this up. We still got to make some adjustments, bend things just a little bit to make sure the chain tracks correctly. Let me show you how to set it up, okay? You want the arch here to correspond with the same arc that you see in your rim. You don't want it to where it is too far this way to where the wheel bumps against the rim, and if you have it too far that way, it'll hit the spoke. So you got to find that sweet spot where you mount it there, okay? You want to get this securely fastened on here, and then you're going to have to play around with your skateboard wheel to get it aligned correctly here. The way the frames are made on most beach cruisers, they angle in, so it's wider here and narrower here, and that puts this kind of cocked here with this part here in closer, and what that does is it makes the wheel here back a little bit here. I'm exaggerating. As opposed to being at a 90-degree angle to the chain, it's like that, and your chain won't track in the center. It'll track inside towards the back and then towards the other side here on the front. So what we're going to want to do is get you a big heavy wrench, get someone to hold the rear of the bike here, and we're going to bend this. You want to bend this part here out ever so slightly so you can get the wheel aligned at a 90-degree angle to your chain. So once we get the sweet spot for the wheel here, you're going to want to play with your mounting. Okay, so you may have to take this wheel here off a time or two and add more washers or take more washers out in order to get it aligned to where the chain will track in the center of the wheel. Take your time, make sure you get it right, spin your wheel, make sure the chain continues to track in the center. Let's take a look at the arch chain tensioner here, and I've got a grouping of washers between the wheel and the arch piece here. What that will do is that will space it to where you get the correct alignment to where what we want the chain to do is we want the chain to ride in the very center of the wheel, or as close to it as we can get it, okay? And you will get a grouping of washers. You have two 5/16 inch fender washers, you have a 1/4 inch washer, and then you'll have an assortment of 5/16 inch standard washers. The first washer that you want to put on this here that's going to go against the bearing is the 1/4 inch one, and it just barely fits. Reason being, if it rubs against the outer part of this bearing, it's going to bind up your wheel, and we don't want that. We want that wheel to turn. So the first washer we put on is going to be the 1/4 inch washer. Then for the way I did it on this Cranbrook here is I put 3 of the 5/16" washers. You want the big 5/16" fender washers securely against the arch black piece. Then you have however many 5/16" washers you need to space it out. And once everything is tightened, you want to be sure you get the hex nut firmly secured. That way there's no wobble in the bolt that goes through, and the wheel spins freely, and you know you got everything set up correctly. Now I'll include some additional washers to give you some flexibility in your mounting. You can see what we're doing here. So we've got the 1/4" washer up against the wheel. Then we've got however many 5/16" washers behind that. Then you've got the fender washer, which is going to ride against the arch piece here. Then a 5/16" washer. Fender washer, that is, then a 5/16" washer, then you've got your nylock nut. So once you've got your alignment correct here to where the wheel isn't tilted backwards or forward, you've got your chain running centered on the wheel, push in on your clutch if it's a 2-stroke here, and then give it a spin. Let it spin for a while and make sure that the chain continues to track and it's not drifting any, and you know you've got your setup good here. Bolts from the U-bolt are sticking out too long as well. The 5/16" bolt that holds the wheel is sticking out too far, and your leg will either catch it or your pants leg will catch it. So once you get it dialed in, go ahead and cut this off, file it off, that way we don't have any sharp edges, and you'll be good to go. Check the link down below. All right, boys and girls, well, hey, I hope I helped somebody out. If you like my video, give me a thumbs up. There's a subscribe button down there. If you want, you can get notifications. Click that as well. If you like the arch chain tensioner, I've got links down there below in the description where I can sell you a cool one. I want to thank you for watching. Be careful. Wear a helmet. Y'all take care.
Baby.